Hi everyone. So I woke up and was reading the comments from my two Batman videos last night, and I guess I mentioned Gotham in one of them, and I got some very strong reactions about that. One of the things I've consistently found is that comic book fans tend to dislike the TV show Gotham, while normies or regular people or non-comic book fans tend to love it. And it's really interesting why. So one of the reasons I started this YouTube channel is because I got into listening to YouTube while I was drawing comics after work, and I found that there was there wasn't a deep bench of people that I liked. It was literally just like 4 people, and then everyone else was this like hyper, like overly done, like trying to be characters out of like The Big Bang Theory, and they're like pose like a ridiculous amount of toys and Funko dolls behind them. But then the other thing I didn't like, besides I felt like they were doing like very put on and almost like playing a role, is that they were very lockstep. I remember everyone hating Ben Affleck being cast, and then I checked back and then everyone loved it, and you could never ever question it. And I feel like I've noticed that, especially in the last 10 years, that there's like there's almost like rules to being a fan. Like you have to like this, you can't like this. So I'm a kind of a contrarian. My favorite Blade movie is Blade Trinity. I like Batman Forever. I actually like the first 10 minutes of Batman and Robin. I actually like all the CW shows. Those are all comic book fans tend to dislike them. So Gotham is my favorite comic book TV show ever. And I kind of do understand why people hated it, because when I first heard of it, it annoyed the hell out of me. First of all, just calling it Gotham just seemed like a dumb ripoff of Smallville, which Smallville I got into like 8 years into the series. I always thought that looked stupid. And then when I was in Afghanistan, somebody had some VLC copies of it, so I like burned through like 8 seasons, and I caught up with like, and then I think it was in the 8th or 9th season. So then I watched the rest of it. But it really annoyed because I was like, I don't want to see 8-year-old Bruce Wayne. I don't want to like watch for 10 years waiting for him to become Batman. And then it also annoyed me. I'm like, oh, we're already seeing the villains. Like, so all the villains are going to be 10 years older, and they're all going to start their careers earlier. So then I watched the first episode, and the first episode was pretty terrible. It had all these like ridiculous. They kept squeezing in like little like get it moments. Like you meet Edward Nygma, and he has to say, not only does he have to say a riddle, but he actually has to say the word riddle like the first time you see him. You meet Poison Ivy, and like of course she's like wearing green, and then you see Selena Kyle, and then she's posing like a cat, and they call her Cat. They don't just call her Selena. Like, we get it. There was also this really stupid subplot where an ex-con was framed for the Wayne murders, and then when they go to investigate him, he starts like trying to kill the 2 cops, so they end up killing him. Then later, in self-defense, and he was really tough. It took 2 of them to do it. And he was just he almost killed Gordon several times. And then later you find out that he didn't actually, and he had guns and all kinds of stuff in his apartment, which he shouldn't have. And then afterwards, when they found out that that guy that they shot actually didn't kill the Waynes, like they were filled with guilt. They're like, we killed the wrong man. It's like, well, he didn't kill the Waynes, but he tried to kill Gordon like 10 times in broad daylight. I don't understand why you're feeling bad about that. But then in the second episode, and I got it on when it was on Netflix, and I think it just autoplayed into the second episode, and then that one was good, and I swear every single episode has been good. But they got some tricks to that, because Gotham isn't really like any other superhero show where it has very distinct episodes with a plot, and then you have a continuing plot. It's much more akin to, I think, do they even have soap operas anymore? I remember being a kid and being sick, and there was like a 4-hour block in the middle, like around lunchtime, where there was just like, I don't know, like 6 different soap operas. And the deal about them is they never had a main story. They would have like a lead character, but it would just like flip between like 6 different storylines, and then they would come in and go. So Gotham does that, and Gotham has a lot of things that are very unique about it, and that's why I like it so much. And I'll just say them randomly, like every other video. Number one, it's very high quality. It's shot basically as a movie. You see from the cinematography, you see from the direction, you see from the acting, that this is basically feature level. And to that end, they're kind of like The Walking Dead, where they'll have a season, but there'll be like a 3-month break in between the first and the second half. And I think a lot of it's just, I think these are professional crews that they go work on a movie. And a lot of the actors are, Morena Baccarin, and she goes and shoots an entire movie and then comes back for the second half of the season. The other thing is that it's filmed in, I believe, upstate New York, and the actors they get are so much better than, I would say, every other superhero show, even shows like Daredevil, which are shot in like Brooklyn and New York. So you'll have like, I remember one time it was literally jerk cop with 5 lines, and then he gets killed by being attached to a balloon, which is a very Gotham death. But I'm sure this guy was some Broadway actor with like 30 years of experience. I mean, everyone's great. I love the CW superhero shows, and I actually like Smallville a lot. But you'll have like 3 or let's be kind, about 3 good actors. Not great, good. You might have 1 great actor. Like Stephen Amell is legitimately a great actor. Detective Joe from Flash, he's a great actor. Most of the rest of the cast is great, or good to okay. But then you have this giant chasm, and then you get to all the bit players, all the people who are like, the cop with 3 lines, the judge, the person at the store, and it's always, since they're filmed in Canada and they get a lot of tax breaks, they have to hire a certain amount of Canadians. So you'll have Stephen Amell, and then like there's like 2 guards, and they're like, "Hey man, is that a sound? Oh, let me go check it out." And you're like, "Oh Jesus!" Like, and it's all the time. It's like in every single episode you see stuff like that. I'm the mayor of what? Ottawa? Like, are all the CW shows set on the very northern part of America? So the other thing that I like about it is, like I said, they get legitimately great actors, much higher. I wouldn't just say higher than other superhero shows. I would say higher than other TV shows in general. The other thing I like about it is that it is completely insane, to the point where I'm surprised it's not getting censored. I mean, they do things that you get immersed very quickly, that they've really established that Gotham is a completely insane place. And things go on there, and it kind of like, I know when people first started it, they're like, I want it to be like The Wire, but with Gordon in it. It's like, that would have been boring. And there I have a show called The Wire. It's called The Wire. This one is just crazy, but it definitely creates a world where Batman would make sense. God, they had one scene where, what was it? Alfred literally punches Selina when she's like 10 square in the face. And it's like, that's what you get, Missy. And then like they were bothering each other for like 4 episodes. And then they kind of had this like grudging respect for each other. Selina, straight when she was like 11, just dumped a 50-year-old man straight out a window. And it wasn't one of those like off, like the way Wonder Woman killed that general, where like they don't show it. She just like tipped his feet up. And I think she was even like, hey, Bruce, help. The other thing I like about it, besides it being a crazy city, is they will do literally any storyline. And like all of a sudden you'll have basically Fish Mooney, who is a character that a lot of people absolutely hate, that I like a lot. All of a sudden she's like kind of written out of the story, in the story, and she'll just be like on this island prison where they do medical experiments, and like it's like there's like a fight club, and she like gets a weird eyeball put into her, and she gets superpowers. Like, it is completely insane. The other thing I like about this, but they kind of evened it out later in the show, and that works too, is that it is effectively every single era of Batman at the same time. Now, it's filmed in kind of a it's kind of like a quasi period piece. Like, the cars will be like from the 60s and 70s. The guns will be like from the 70s and 80s, and people will have cell phones and the internet, but it's like flip phones, and they don't use them that much. It's kind of cool. You can't really tell what it is. It's kind of a timeless era, but it works great. But the themes of it, especially in the first season, were nuts. Like, one scene would be like from a Nolan film. Then the next scene after that would be like from a Tim Burton film. The next scene after that would be like from the Joel Schumacher. And then the Fish Mooney ones were essentially the Adam West TV show. That's what, and I think this is purposeful. I think they're trying to do the different eras. So I remember people really, really hated Fish Mooney, and they still hate her. I liked her in the first season, but when she was written out, I was very happy. I was like, I love you, but you gotta go. And then they brought her back, and the way they brought her back was even crazier than she was. But she's not like the full focus of it now. She's just one of the many, many crazy things about it. So other things that I like about the show is, and I mentioned this in one of my videos yesterday, is their portrayal of Bruce. Even if I didn't like the other aspects, like the crazier aspects, I would like it for this. Number one, the kid is an excellent actor, and that's really hard to find kids who are good actors. Number two is how they portrayed Bruce. Bruce is always different than everyone, even at the beginning. And but they've maintained that even if he's very, very different, he's kind of an innately good person in a city where there really aren't any innately good people. And this might lead up to his vow to not kill, which I think he officially took. I think he already pretty much said that in so many words. No, he did. Yeah, he had like an oath scene with Alfred. But this one actually kind of did the best explanation of why he would have a vow not to kill. And it's because the show is very violent, in a stylized way, but it's incredibly violent. But it masks, like a more real town that has a constant level of violence. And basically, to him, murder is a coin that's been devalued. I think he sees it as very much beneath him and beneath anyone who wants to be a hero, because he's seen so many people, literally killed in front of him, not just his parents, and he sees it all the time that it's a crazy world, and he's basically past that. The other thing that I think make this, they pretty much do every key character I think my favorite version. It's my favorite version of Gordon. It's my favorite version of Alfred, of the Riddler. It doesn't have my favorite version of the Joker, but it has and I was talking to my son about this, and he agrees, it's the best rendition of the standard Joker. So I really like Heath Ledger, but I consider that to be an alternate take on the Joker. It's basically Joker as, woke philosopher terrorist. But if you want Joker as just a crazy person who likes to hurt people and scare them by, confusing them, and then he enjoys it the whole time, this version of the Joker called Jerome is better than anyone. There's not a lot to choose from. There's just Cesar Romero, Jack Nicholson. I like Jack Nicholson, but that was just kind of Jack Nicholson. And I've never been that crazy about the Mark Hamill Joker. I didn't think he was scary, and especially when they tried to do the scary version of him in that Killing Joke animated movie, and it was so cringy and unbelievable. Yeah, so I'm going with the kid who plays Jerome as the best standard version of Joker ever. The other thing that I love is Alfred, and they actually did something from what's his name? I think Jeff Johns did. It's not Batman Year One. He did a graphic novel with Gary Frank, and he basically reimagined Alfred as a retired SAS guy, really tough. This one imagines him as a straight up crazy person, and it is so great because it really explains all the paths that Bruce Wayne, if Bruce Wayne would have just had like, like a shady cousin who just wanted to take care of him and but siphon a lot of his money, he would have grown up pretty straight and normal. But Alfred is a Looney Tune who obviously really, really misses combat. I mean, not even just the military life, just straight up being in combat. And he basically lives his life as if he's in a combat zone all the time. He says things that no rational or sane adult would ever say to a child. But the funny thing is, it's not said with malice. He's legitimately trying to do something that he is almost completely unqualified for. It's kind of like Chip Zdarsky writing humor. Except for there's a goodness to Alfred, and Chip Zdarsky is pure evil. The other one I like, of course, is Gordon. And this Gordon is kind of like borderline over the top in a show that's always over the top. So Gordon is probably the toughest guy on TV ever who is not a ninja. And they do it very convincingly. He's got, the one thing I like is they cast a short actor. Now I know he's not that short, but he's short. And especially when I was in the Marines, you got to watch out for the short guys. There's this thing called little man syndrome, and they will tear you apart. Oh my gosh, you see anyone below 5'7", watch out. They are going to be tough. So he's basically, little man syndrome, Gordon. He's a good guy, but he basically has to be corrupted just to not die. But he's still fighting it, but he's still very aware that at several points he's been corrupted from the very beginning. But he's as close to a white knight as there is in a city and a show like that. But one of the things I just like about him is the portrayal. It's very stalwart, old-fashioned. I mean, he's basically a wrecking ball, but he's still human. I mean, he's basically Captain America. I mean, you see the stuff he does. He's never fighting 5 guys and throwing them across the room, but he's obviously highly trained. I don't know if they ever pinned down what he was. He kind of portrays himself like he was just I don't know, maybe an airborne ranger. He wasn't Delta Force, but he definitely fights he's a Navy SEAL or something like that. The Catwoman, Selina's good. Harvey Bullock is good. The only real fail I've seen so far is Two-Face. They just kind of got a bland. They had just a bland soap opera actor. The one that was really good, that was almost kind of like a pseudo Two-Face that I would have been great, was they had a. What is he? He's in that. I think is it Milo Ventimiglia? He's in that show that's a big hit. That's about a mixed family where there's the old Green Arrow, a really obese woman, and a black guy, and they were all raised in the 70s. Anyway, he was this kind of American Psycho style character. Oh, then I forgot. Then they do things with characters that are always just okay, and they make them the things they did with Leslie Tompkins and Barbara Gordon are insane. Barbara Gordon went from a one-note bore to basically Harley Quinn, but a more interesting version of Harley Quinn. In the second season, Leslie Tompkins went from kind of an angel to now she's hating Gordon because he shot her mafia. Yeah, they did get married. It was the day after they got. No, it was the day married, and then but then the romance between them was really great. So also the other villains, there was a second season villain. I'm forgetting. They basically did a Court of Owls. They started doing a halfway Court of Owls. It's not the storyline from the comics, but it's a lot of the mythos. And he was from season 2. God, what was his name? But he was the best. And again, it was some Broadway guy. They get the best actors. Oh, and the other thing is they got this thug. And I swear to God, remember I talked about the random Canadians who they're ooh, what was that sound? They hired this guy, Butch, and he has become one of the greatest characters in the Batman mythos. To explain, you need 20 minutes just to explain what Butch is and all the things Butch is. Gee, I can't believe I forgot about the Penguin. Okay, wrapping up. The Penguin is not only the best rendition of Penguin, and I love Danny DeVito Penguin. This is a character that is so interesting that he could literally have his own spin-off that could essentially, like the Benedict Cumberbatch Sherlock movies, go on forever. So, geez, man, I could go on for a lot longer. But tell me what you think about Gotham. Tell me if anything I've said has convinced you to go back. I found geeks. Oh God, I hate that term. Comic book fans. I need to pose in front of like 500 Funko dolls. What's up, fellow geeks? Do you like Fruit Roll-Ups and Back to the Future? Jeez, I hate those. I hate those channels. I found a lot of comic book fans. They either never watch it or they dipped out very early, and I always try to convince them to go back. So has anything I said convinced you to go back? If season 1 drove you insane, just skip to season 2. They changed its tone. They got a more consistent tone, and it became really good. So thanks for watching, and I'm going to have a bunch more videos up this weekend.